The man who spent 15 years on death row was innocent all along. Blood ran down Marcus Cole's face as the prison guards dragged him to his final meeting, his execution just 3 hours away for a murder that shattered a small town. "Your dog is waiting," the warden spat, showing unusual cruelty even for death row. "Though God knows why a monster like you deserves any comfort before meeting your maker." When the steel door screeched open, Rex, once a powerful German shepherd, now gray and thin, lunged forward with a desperate howl that silenced everyone in the room. The dog's reaction wasn't joy, it was panic. Rex circled Marcus frantically, sniffing and pawing at his prison uniform, whimpering with such distress that even the veteran guards exchanged uncomfortable glances. "What's wrong with him?" demanded the warden as Rex began tearing at Marcus's sleeve with his teeth, ripping the fabric apart despite Marcus's sister Emily screaming for him to stop. "He's never done this," Emily shouted, trying to pull the dog back. "Rex, stop." But when the sleeve tore away, everyone froze. There, running down Marcus's arm, was a birthmark, shaped like a lightning bolt. A birthmark that, according to all court records and testimony, Marcus Cole did not have. "That's impossible," whispered one of the guards, a man who'd reviewed every inch of Marcus's intake photos and medical records. "Cole doesn't have a birthmark." Marcus looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Because I'm not Marcus Cole," he whispered, his voice breaking after 15 years of silence. "My name is David Mercer. Marcus and I were twins, separated at birth. He's been dead for 17 years. I found out when I tried to locate my birth family. We looked identical, except for this." He touched the birthmark with trembling fingers. Rex had recognized the scent difference instantly, the one thing that couldn't be faked between identical twins. The dog had been desperately trying to expose the truth. The man on death row wasn't his owner at all, but someone who'd taken his place. Emily collapsed into a chair, her face ashen. "If you're not my brother, then who have I been visiting for 15 years? And why would you?" "Because Marcus was already wanted for 3 murders when he died," David whispered. "I had nothing, no one. When the police mistook me for him, I saw a chance to finally do something good, to pay for his crimes. But then they charged me with the Riverside killings, murders that happened after he was already dead." The warden's phone was already out, his hands shaking as he dialed the governor's office. Rex pressed against David's leg, whimpering softly. The dog had just overturned 15 years of false identity and uncovered a miscarriage of justice with nothing but his sense of smell and desperate loyalty to a master who never existed. The visitation room erupted into chaos. Guards radioed for the warden as Emily fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, desperate to call David's attorney. Rex refused to leave David's side, growling at anyone who approached too quickly. "Stop the execution. We need to verify his identity immediately," the senior guard shouted into his radio. But verification wasn't enough. Even if David wasn't Marcus Cole, he had still confessed to the Riverside murders, the very crimes that had placed him on death row. The shocking revelation of his identity only added another bewildering layer to an already complex case. As David was escorted back to the holding cell, this time with Rex permitted to accompany him under the extraordinary circumstances, Emily rushed to her car. She returned 30 minutes later, bursting into the prison administrative offices with a weathered cardboard box. "I found this in my attic last month," she gasped, setting it down before the hastily assembled team of prison officials and the district attorney, who had been summoned for this unprecedented situation. "I didn't understand what it meant until now." Inside was a collection of VHS tapes, each labeled with dates corresponding to the Riverside murders. The prison's ancient VCR was brought out, and with trembling hands, Emily inserted the first tape. The grainy footage showed a man who looked exactly like David/Marcus, walking along a beach boardwalk. The timestamp matched the exact time of the first murder, but the location was over 300 miles away from Riverside. "That's my brother," Emily whispered. "The real Marcus. He made these tapes obsessively, documenting his life. It was part of his mental illness. Tape after tape revealed the same impossible truth. The real Marcus Cole had created an alibi for himself for each murder, videotaping himself in distant locations at the exact times the Riverside killings occurred. Yet he had never used these tapes in his defense. The district attorney's face drained of color. Why would someone create alibis for murders, then never use them? David, who had been brought back to witness this revelation, spoke softly. Because he didn't commit those murders. But he knew someone was framing him, someone who knew about his previous crimes. The final tape wasn't of Marcus, but a shaky recording of a local police officer, now the chief of police, planting evidence at one of the crime scenes. Marcus had been tracking the real killer all along. My brother was many things, a murderer, yes, for his earlier crimes. But he was trying to solve the Riverside cases to clear his name. Then he died unexpectedly, and I stepped into his life just as the frame-up was complete, David explained. The evidence was overwhelming. Not only was the wrong man about to be executed, but the real killer had been walking free for 15 years, rising through the ranks of law enforcement. Rex whined and pressed against David's leg as the district attorney made an emergency call to the governor. The countdown to midnight continued, but now it was a race to save an innocent man and expose a killer who had been hiding in plain sight. Outside the prison walls, reporters had already gathered for the scheduled execution. They had no idea that the story they were about to cover would change from an execution to one of the most shocking miscarriages of justice in criminal history. The clock showed 11:17 p.m., just 43 minutes until David's scheduled execution. The prison hallways became a frantic battlefield of legal phone calls and emergency paperwork as David's hastily reassembled legal team fought against an unforgiving system designed to close cases, not reopen them. The governor wants more than just tapes, snapped the prison warden, sweat beading on his forehead. He needs conclusive evidence before he'll grant a stay. Outside, protesters on both sides of the capital punishment debate grew louder as news of the possible mistaken identity leaked. Satellite trucks lined the prison access road, reporters breathlessly updating viewers about the dramatic 11th-hour developments. Inside the administrative office, Police Chief Warren Phillips arrived, ostensibly to assist with the investigation, the very man implicated on the final tape. His confident smile faltered when he saw Rex. The dog's reaction was immediate and visceral, hackles raised, a deep growl rumbling from his chest. "Control that animal," Phillips demanded, hand drifting toward his service weapon. Emily noticed something strange. Rex wasn't just reacting with aggression. He was fixated on Phillips' leather glove. The dog lunged forward, clamping his jaws around the chief's wrist and tearing the glove off before anyone could react. There on Phillips' hand was a distinctive scar, one that matched the description a surviving victim had given 15 years ago, like a crescent moon between his thumb and index finger. The detail had been withheld from the public. Only the killer and investigators knew about it. When Marcus was investigating the real killer, this was what he had discovered. "Arrest him!" David's attorney shouted as Phillips reached for his gun. The next moments unfolded in chaos, Phillips attempting to flee, guards tackling him to the ground, his service weapon skittering across the floor. From his pocket fell a key ring with a peculiar brass key that matched nothing on his police equipment. Emily recognized it instantly. "That's a key to my brother's storage unit, the one I could never find after his death." 11:38 p.m. 22 minutes remaining. A police escort raced Emily and two investigators to the long-abandoned storage facility across town. The unit contained the final pieces. Phillips' complete trophy collection from each victim, DNA evidence he had stolen from police lockup, and a detailed journal outlining how he had committed the murders and framed Marcus Cole. 11:53 p.m. 7 minutes remaining. The governor's office received the photographed evidence as David was being prepared for execution. The phone line to the execution chamber remained ominously silent as the minute hand crept forward. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes remaining. David was strapped to the gurney, 4 lines inserted into his arms. Rex had been taken back to Emily, his howls echoing through the prison corridors as he fought to return to the man he had saved. The execution team stood ready, awaiting the final order. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute remaining. The red phone on the wall rang. The warden lunged for it, listened for 3 seconds and shouted, "Stop the execution! Official stay from the governor." As the medical team removed the 4 lines from David's arms, the prison doors opened for a different prisoner. Police Chief Phillips, now in handcuffs, headed for the same cell block where David had spent 15 years. By morning, David Mercer walked free for the first time in 15 years, squinting against the bright sunlight. Rex bounded toward him across the prison parking lot, no longer an old dog but seemingly rejuvenated by justice finally being served. Reporters clamored for statements, cameras flashing as David knelt to embrace the dog, who had not only requested a final visit but had ultimately saved his life and exposed a killer. "How does it feel to be exonerated?" a reporter shouted above the crowd. David looked down at Rex, then up at the clear blue sky, his first as a free man. "Like waking up from the darkest nightmare into the brightest day," he answered, his voice breaking with emotion. "And remembering that good still exists in this world, sometimes in the form of a loyal dog who never stopped believing in the truth." The story that began as an execution day report transformed into one of the most remarkable exonerations in criminal history, all because a condemned man's final wish was to see his dog.